Texas political culture. What kind of people live in Texas? And what kind of government do we have? And this micro lecture is just about this big question of what does it mean to live in the state of Texas and why should that matter? So, why should we study state governments? I mean, if you think about it, why does your life change depending on which state you live in? Well, there are a lot of ways that being in Texas versus being in Mississippi or Arkansas or Michigan, your quality of life can change. The laws that they pass can change. What different economic opportunities exist for you can change. And even your level of poverty. So, state governments actually have more of an impact on your day to day life than the federal government does. So, that's one reason why we need to study state government, because this kind of aspect does matter in a way that we usually don't think about. So, what is political culture? Every state has a political culture, and all that really means is that what attitudes, values, and beliefs really affect the society and how that society feels about the political system, including what standard assumptions about the way that government should work. And all this basically means is, what do we think government should do? And believe it or not, so many things go into this question. Do you trust the government? Do you trust the people around you? What is your background? What's your education level? What is your family structure like? What are your religious beliefs? All of these things go and develop your attitudes. And if you put those together in the aggregate, that's the political culture. What we want government to do really does depend on what we believe. So, if we're going to zero in on state governments, we want to ask the question, why should we care about Texas? What does it mean to be Texan? Is it just the cowboy boots and the cowboy hats? And is it Longhorns? Or is it urban? Is it cotton fields? Is it oil? Is it a sense of belief or belonging? Is it a sense of freedom or pride? This question of what it means to be Texan is important to this class, and it's one we're going to explore in future lectures and in future chapters. Another thing to look at is, how long do you need to be in Texas to consider yourself a Texan? Are you only a Texan if you've been here from birth? Or since you were a little child? Do you count as Texan if you got here last year? Or 10, 12 years ago, like I did? And this really does go into this question because Texas is a state with a huge growing population. More people are moving to Texas than any other state. And so you have to wonder, how will these people that move here affect the political culture of Texas? Will the people that move to Texas from other states and from other countries, will they bring with them their own political cultures and want to put those cultures on Texas? Or are they more likely to assimilate into the Texas political culture? So what is the Texas political culture? The Texas political culture focuses on a few specific ideas. One, there is this focus on independence and self-reliance. Traditionally, we are not a state where the people want to be told what to do by the government. We like to be left alone. There's this idea, the less government you have, the better, if you will, called no tax, no service, if you've maybe heard that before. Texas is a state full of people that traditionally haven't wanted the government to provide for them. We'd rather provide for ourselves and just be left alone. Another aspect of our political culture are traditional values. If you look at the history of Texas, many of the immigrants that came here in the 1820s, 30s, 40s, and 50s came from the southeastern part of the United States and the midwestern part of the United States, two very conservative religious places. That's part of why Texas is considered so religious. We're also considered very family oriented. You may have heard family is everything, and you want to do everything you can for your family. And then a last thing that really does go into our culture are politics. Because we are so focused on independence, and because we are so self-reliant, and because we do value these traditional views, we actually don't have a high level of political involvement by the average everyday person. We have low voter turnout historically. We are low information voters. We don't care that much about what candidates stand for, as long as you can tell us if it's a Republican or a Democrat next to the name. We're not heavy issue voters. It's not uncommon for someone to get elected just because they have a famous family name. Bush, for example, Vandergrift, for example, Paxton now is becoming to be a more significant name. And so you do look at this idea where we want government to be hands-off, and the people don't want to be that involved in government, which means there is a small elite in this state that do run most of the state level politics. And we're going to look at how that affects the average everyday person in future classes. The last thing you have to understand about the state of Texas and our political culture is that we are one of contradictions. Texans will tell you they love freedom, they love liberty, they don't want people to tell them what to do, but at the same time, Texans consistently voted against implementing same-sex marriage. Texans voted against any kind of domestic partnership benefits, and it was up to the Supreme Court to force Texas to actually institute same-sex marriage. So, love for freedom, but not freedom for everybody. We're a state that traditionally does care about people. We are known as a very friendly state, and survey after survey on the internet will show that. But that friendliness does not translate into public policy, because if we're so friendly, why are there so many kids uninsured? Why are we so high in the rankings with number of kids that need government health insurance? Because as a state, we don't want to cover them. So we're friendly face to face, one-on-one, but that friendliness does not typically extend to public policy. So social friendliness and government services are not connected. We're one that cares a lot about Texas pride. I mean, I have yet to go to a state and find another group of people that care about their state so much. Texans are obsessed with Texas in a way that you only really see out of maybe New Yorkers, maybe Californians, but for the most part, most people in Iowa don't care that they live in Iowa the way that Texans care about Texas. We brand waffles, we have our flag everywhere. And yet, if you look at quality of life studies, if you compare the studies of different states based on education degree, income level, wealth inequality, and a variety of different factors, Texas is actually in the bottom fifth in terms of quality of life. That means in 4/5 of the states, you're actually more likely to have a better life than if you stayed in Texas. Why is that? That's something to think about. We are a very business-friendly state. We love to bring businesses here. We love to have low business taxes. We love to say that we don't have an income tax. But that business-friendly state really means we have a lot of job growth, but we have a lot of high poverty. If we are so business friendly and we're starting businesses all the time, shouldn't that mean that there are a lot of jobs to pay people? But in fact, the jobs that we do have here typically are low paying jobs. Retail jobs, service sector jobs where you don't make a lot of money. So business friendly, yes, but who is getting all of the money? We are also a state with a lot of rapid migration and population increase, and I've mentioned that before. But there has to be a question of, when do we get to have too many people? If we have too many people at Fort Worth, does it affect the quality of life of Fort Worth or of the DFW Metroplex or Houston? Is it good to have so many people here? And so that's one thing we're going to look at, especially in the public policy chapter towards the end of the semester. All right, thanks for watching. Email me if you have any questions. And if you didn't notice, all of the pictures I showed were from different cities in Texas. So all of the images are of Texas. And I challenge you to figure out which city is in which picture. Thanks, everyone.